Alright, New York Codes Rules and Regulation. Title 16, Department of Public Service, Chapter 3, Gas Utilities, Subchapter C, Safety. Part 255, Transmission and Distribution of Gas. Transmission Pipeline Integrity Management. Scope. Part 255.901. In Section 255.901 to 951 is part of the minimum requirements of the Integrity Management Program on any gas transportation pipeline covered under this part. For gas transmission pipelines constructed of plastic, only the requirements of Section 917, 921, 935, and 937 in this part apply. Alright, definitions. Following definitions apply to Section 901 through 951. Assessment. Use of the high testing techniques allowed with the Section 901 through 951 with the part's assertion that the condition of the covered pipeline segment, conformity, direct assessment, integrity assessment method, use of the bogus application principle techniques, direct assessment, identify internal, external corrosion covered with the transmission pipeline segment. Covered pipeline segment means a segment of gas transmission pipeline located in a high consequent area with the terms of gas transmission line defined in 255.3 of this part. Direct assessment is an integrity assessment method that utilizes the process of evaluating certain threats: external corrosion, internal corrosion, stress corrosion, cracking, covered pipeline segment integrity. The process includes gathering integration risk factors, indirect examination of or analysis to identify high suspected corrosion, direct examination of the pipeline in these areas, and post-assessment evaluation. High consequent area immediately established in one of the methods been described in paragraph 1 and 2 of the subdivision as follows. Area defined in Class 3, Section 102.55.5. Class 4 location 102.55.5. Any area Class 1, 2 location with a potential impact is greater than 660 feet, and the area with a potential impact circles contains 20 or more buildings intended for human occupancy, or an area Class 1, Class 2 location with potential impact circles contain a identified site. The area with potential impact circle contains 20 more buildings intended to human occupancy unless exemption in paragraph 4 of the subdivision applies, and a 2 identified site. When potential impact circle is calculated under the paragraph 1 and 2 of the subdivision, establish a high consequence area with the length of the high consequent area extends actually along the length of the pipeline with the outmost edge of the potential impact circle contained with the identified site with 20 or more buildings intended with a human occupancy to the outermost edge of the less contingency potential impact circle with the contained with the identified site with the 20 more buildings of intended with human occupancy. If it is identified with a high consequent under subparagraph 1 and 3 of the subdivision, or paragraph 2, 1 of the subdivision radius of the potential impact circle greater than 660 feet, the operator may identify with a high consequent area based on prorated number of buildings intended for high occupancy, which is distance 660 feet from the center of the pipeline on December 17, 2006. Operator chooses the approach. The operator must prorate the number of buildings intended with human occupancy based on the ratio area within a radius of 660 feet. The area of the potential impact prorated number of buildings intended with a human occupancy is equal to 20 times 660 feet, or 200 meters potential impact radius in feet and meters. Identified site means each of the following: outside area with open open structure occupied with 20 more persons at least 50 days in 12-month period. These need not be consecutive examples include, but not limited to, beaches, playgrounds, recreational facilities, camping grounds, outdoor theaters, stadiums, recreational areas, near body water areas, outside rural buildings, such as a religious facility. A building is occupied with 20 more people on at least 5 days a week, or for 10 weeks in 12-month period. The days what weeks need to be not consecutive examples include, but not limited to, the religious freedom office building, community center, general store, 4-H facility, roller skating rinks. The faculty occupied by the person confined with impaired mobility would be difficult to evacuate. Examples include, but not limited to, the hospital, prisons, schools, daycare facilities, retirement facilities, assisted living facilities. Alright, potential impact circle is the circle of the radius equal to the potential impact radius. Potential impact radius means the radius of the circle which the potential failure of the pipeline could significantly impact on people or the property. Potential impact radius, determined formula by the radius times 0.69 or square root of the maximal allowable working pressure times D, the nominal diameter in pipelines in inches squared. Alright. 0.69 is factor in natural gas number that will vary with the gas depends on heat, combustion, operating, transportation, gas, other than natural gas, used with section 32 ASME ASI B31AS to calculate impact radius formula. Remediation is a repair mitigation activity operated to covered segment to limit the reduced probability of the undesired event occurring through the expected consequence of the event from event. That was definitions. High consequence area. General of the segments of the operator transmission pipeline segment covered in 255 down 1 through 951 where the operator must identify with a high consequence area where the operator must use the methods defined in section 903F1 or 2, the part of identified with the high consequence area, the operator must use the method of the entire pipeline system, or the operator may apply with the method of the individual portion of the pipeline system. The operator must describe in its integrity management program, which is method is applying the portion of the operator's pipeline. The description must include potential impact radius when utilized with established high consequence area. Identified sites. Operator must identify the identified site for the purpose of section 255, 901 through 951 with the information of the operator for the obtainment of the routine operation maintenance activities from public officials for safety and emergency response planning and responsibility indicated through the operator with the known location to meet with the identified site criteria. These public offices could include the official with the local emergency planning commission relative to the Native American and the tribal officials. If the public official with the safety and emergency response planning responsibilities informed the operator that does not have the information to identify the identified site, the operator must use the following sources as appropriate to identify these sites: visual marking site, licensed or registered federal state government agency site on a list, included a list of internet website map maintained by available the federal, state, local government agency, available to the general public. Newly identified areas. When the operator information around the pipeline segment did not previously identified with a high consequence area to satisfy with the definition of the 255-903, but the operator must complete with the evaluation method of 1 and 2. Segment is determined to meet the definition of high consequence area and is incorporated with the operator's baseline assessment plan as a high consequence area with 1 year of the date of the area identified. That was 905 high consequence areas. Alright, general. No later than 17th of 2004, an operator for the covered pipeline segment must develop the following integrity management program that contains the elements described in 255-11 as part of the risk of each covered transmission pipeline segment. The initial integrity management program must consist at a minimum of a framework that describes the process implementing each program element with how relevant the decision may be made, by what time, and the complete work of the implement program element, and know how information gained with the experience of the continuous incorporated into the program framework will evolve with a more detailed, comprehensive program. Operator must make continual improvements to the program. Carrying out section 255, 901, and 951, operator must follow the requirements of sections 255 and 901 to 951 with a part of this part of ANSME, ANSI B31-8S, and its appendixes where specified under an operator follow the equivalent standard of the practice as long as the operator demonstrated the alternative standard of the practice could provides equivalent level of safety with the public and property in event of conflict between section 255, 901, and 951 as part of the ASM and the ASI B3187. 8S. The requirements of section 255, 901, and 250-91 of this part control. Alright, changes in integrity management program. General operator must document any change within the program, the reason of the change before implementing the change. Notification operator must notify the department OOPS in accordance with the 259-949 with the part of any change of the program substantially affect with the program's implementation. May signify with the modify with the program schedule with the carry out of the program elements. Any operator must provide with a notification within 30 days with the adopting the type of the change of the program. Alright, required elements. Operator must integrity management program begin with the framework of the section 255-907 involved with a more detailed, comprehensive integrity management program information gained with incorporated with the program. Operator must continually improve with it to the program. Initial program framework. Subsequent program must be at a minimum contain following elements when indicated refer to the ASME ASI B31-8S described in section 10.3 with a title for more detailed information list assessment. Identify all high consequence area in accordance with the section 255-905 of this part. Baseline assessment plan meeting requirements section 255-919 to 1921. 921. Integration risk assessment. Operator must receive the threat and indication risk assessment prior to the covered segment to her assessment. Section 255.917 of this part, evaluate the merits of additional preventive mitigative measures, and 255.935 of this part for each covered segment. A direct assessment, if applicable, meeting the requirements of section 255.923 part, depending on the threat assessed in section 255, 925, 927, and 929 of this part provision, meeting the requirements of 255, 933 of this part, remedial conditions found during and identified with this assessment, process control evaluation assessment, meeting the requirements of section 255, 937 of this part, if applicable, planning conformity with the direct assessment, meeting the requirements of section 255, 931. Prisons meeting the requirements of section 255, 935 of the part with the preventing mitigative measures to protect the high consequence areas of performance outlined in ASME ASI B31.8 as section 9 includes performance measuring, meeting the requirements of section 255, 945 of this part. Record keeping provisions meeting the requirements of section 255, 947 of this part. Management change process outlined in the ASME ASI B31.8 as section 11. The quality assurance process outlined in ASM ASI B31.8 section 12. Communication plan indicate AMSI ASI B31.8 as section 10 that includes procedure addressing concerns raised with the department and OS. The procedure providing which when request electrical officers other means, copy the operator risk analysis of the identified program management program to the department OPS. Procedure ensure that each integrity is being assessment is being conducted in a manner to minimize environmental safety risk. Process identification assessment newly identified a high consequent area. That was 9/11 required elements. Alright, deviation from the requirements of this part, AMSI, ANSI, B31.8S, if it provides essential feature for the performance-based and prescriptive integrated management program operator that each of the performance-based approach will satisfy with the requirements exceptional performance in subdivision B of the section may deviate with the requirements section 259, 901, and 951 of this part provided in subdivision C of the section. Exceptional performance operator must be able to demonstrate exceptional performance integrity management program following practices that deviate with the requirements set forth for the subdivision C with the section. Operator must performance-based integrity management program that meets exceed with the performance-based requirements ASME, ASI, B31.8S and minimum with the following elements. Compressive process, risk analysis, all risk factors, support program, comprehensive with the data integration, a procedure applying lessons learned and assessment covered pipeline check with the pipeline check with the data covered in section 255, 901 through 951. A procedure evaluating every incident including its cause of the operator sector of the pipeline industry, application both of the operator pipeline system of the operator's integrity management program. Performance of matrix demonstrated the program has been effective to ensure the integrity of the covered segments controlling the identified threads of the covered segment. A semi-annual performance measure for those beyond those required in the 255, 945 is this part of the operator performance plan. Operator must submit these measures by electronic or other means semi-annual frequency of the department OPS according to the section 255, 951. With analysis of the support with the desired integrity reassessment interval, the remediation method of the covered segments, additions, requirements, of performance-based plan. The operator must have completed at least 2 integrity assessments on each covered pipeline segment. The operator is included upon a performance-based approach to be able to demonstrate that each assessment effectively addressed the identified threats for the covered segment, remediate anomalies, identified more recent assessment according to the requirements of section 255, 933 of this part, incorporating the result of the lessons learned, more recent assessment operators, data integrity, risk management. C. Deviation operator demonstrated that has satisfied the requirements of subdivision B of the section. Operator may deviate with the prescriptive requirements for the ASME, ASI, B31.8S, or section 259, 901 through 951 part of the only with the following instance. Time frame reassessment is provided in 255 through 939 of this part, except for the reassessment of the same method allowed with the section 259, 901 through 951 of this part. Conformity directed assessment must be carried out on all intervals no longer than 7 years. Time frame of remediation provided in section 255, 933 of this part. Operator demonstrate for the time frame now will not jeopardize safety of the covered segment. That's 913 deviations from requirements of the part. Knowledge and training. Supervisor personnel integrity management program must provide each supervisor responsibility relate with the integrity management program. Possess maintains through knowledge and integrity management program elements with its supervisor responsible. Program must provide that any of the person qualified supervisor integrity management program appropriate training experience in the area in which the person is responsible. Person who carries out assessment evaluate assessment result with integrity management program must by criteria qualification any of the person who conducts integrity management assessed allowed in section 255.901 through 951 of this part, or receives, reviews, and analyzes the result of integrity assessment and evaluation, or who makes decision actions based on these assessments. C. Personnel responsible for preventive mitigative measures. An integrated management program must provide criteria qualification any of the person implement preventive mitigative measures to carry out 255.901 through 951 of this part, including marking, locating buried structures, or directly supervised excavation work carried out in conjunction with integrity management. Or identification potential threats of pipeline. Identifying the threat of the integrity program threat identification. Operator must identify and evaluate the potential threats. Each cover the pipe segment. The potential threats for the operator must consider include, but not limited to, the threats listed in AMSCI, ANSI, B31.8, or described in section 10.3 of the title section 2 with a group of the following four categories. Time depends on the internal corrosion, external corrosion, stress corrosion, cracking stat, or resident threats such as fabrication, construction defects. Time independent threats such as third-party damage, outside force damage, and human error. Data gathering, integration, identify and evaluate potential threats covered in the pipeline. So the operator must gather and integrate with the existing data with the information in the entire pipeline that could be relevant to the covered segment. Performing the data with the integration, the operator must follow the requirements of ASME, ASI, B31.8S, Section 4. Minimum operator must gather and evaluate set of data and specified with Appendix A, the ASME, ASI, B31.8S, or consider both covered with a segment, a similar non-covered segment, past incident history of corrosion control records, continual surveillance records, patrolling records, maintenance history, internal inspection records, all other condition specifications of the pipeline. See, a risk operator must conduct a risk assessment, follow the ASMI, ASI, B31.8S, Section 5. Consider the identified health threats. Each of the identified threats, each of the segment operator must use the assessment of the proprietary covered segment of a baseline and continual assessment, and determine additional preventive mitigative measures as needed. For the covered segment, plastic transmission line, an operator plastic transmission pipeline must assess the threats for the covered segment but using information section 4 and 5 ASMI BA31.8S and consider any threats unique to the integrity plastic plan. Actions address particular threats. Operator identify the following threats. Operators must take all the action to address the threat. The third-party damage operator must utilize the data integration where required in subpart. Subdivision B with the section AMSA, ANSI, B31.8S, Appendix A7, to determine this respectively. Each cover the segment of the threat with the third party with the operator. Identify the third-party damage of the operator must implement comprehensive additional preventive measures in accordance with section 255.935, the monitoring effectiveness of preventive measures in conducting baseline assessment 255.921, or reassessment under section 255.937. The operator uses the internal inspection tool, external corrosion direction assessment, but the operator may integrate with these assessments with the data related with the encroachment of the foreign line crossing the covered segment to find the potential indication third-party damage may exist at the covered segment. An operator must also have the procedures, integrate management program addressing actions that respond findings with the data integration. Cyclic failure. Operator must evaluate the cyclic other local loading conditions, including ground movement and suspension bridge conditions, could lead to failure of the deformation, including dent or gouge or other defect with the covered segment. The evaluation must assume the presence of the threat covered segment that could be exuberated by cycling fatigue. Operator must use the result of evaluating together the criteria used to evaluate significant threat covered segment prior to its integrity baseline assessment reassessment. 3. Manufacturing construction defects. Operator identify the threat of manufacturing construction defects, including seam defects, to cover the segment of the operator. Analyze the covered segment to determine the risk of the failure of these defects. Analyze or consider the result prior to the assessment of the covered segment. Operator might consider manufacturing construction related defects to stable defects. The operating pressure on the covered segment has not increased over the maximum operating pressure experienced during the 5 years preceding identification of high consequent area. If the following changes occur with the covered segment, the operator must prioritize covered segment and high risk segment of the baseline assessment subsequent reassessment. Operating pressure increases above the maximum operating pressure experienced during the preceding 5 years. Maximal allowable operating pressure increases. Stressing and cycle fatigues increase. ERW pipe is covered pipeline segment with a frequently electrical resistant welded pipe. Welded pipe, other pipes satisfied with the condition of ASME, ASI, B31.8S, Appendix A43 and A44. Any covered, non-covered segment of the pipe which is such a pipe and experienced seam failure, operating pressure covered segment increased maximum operating pressure experienced during the preceding 5 year. Operator must select assessment technology proven applicability, application capable of assessing seam integrity, seam corrosion, and anomalies. Operator must prioritize covered segment, high-risk segment, baseline assessment, subsequent assessment, reassessment, or corrosion if the operator identified with the corrosion covered pipeline segment with adversely with effect with the integrity of the land and the conditions specified in section 255.931 of the SPAR. Operator must evaluate, remediate the necessary pipeline segments must be covered and non-covered with a similar material for the coating and environmental characteristics. Operator must establish a schedule evaluating, remediating necessary with the similar segments that is consistent with the operator operating maintenance procedure established or Title 49, Part 192 for testing and repair. That was identification potential threats to Pipeline 917. Alright, your baseline assessment plan. An operator must include each of the following elements in a written baseline assessment plan: identification potential threats to each covered pipeline segment, information support of the threat identification method, selecting asset integrity line of pipe, including explanation of the assessment method, selecting the address identified threats for each covered segment, integrity assessment method the operator used based on the threats identified with the covered segment, more than one method that may be required to address the threats of covered pipeline segment, and schedule completing an integrity assessment all covered segment, including risk factors considering established assessment schedule. If applicable, the direct assessment meets requirements 255.923 of this part, depending on the threat to be addressed, section 925, 927, and 929. Procedure to ensure the pipeline assessment is conducted in a manner to minimize environmental safety risks. Alright, conducting a baseline assessment. As that methods, the operator must assess the integrity of the pipeline covered segment, applying one or more of the following methods depending on the threats to which the covered segment is susceptible. Operator must select the method best suited to address the threats identified with the covered segment. Internal inspection tools capable of detecting corrosion and any other threats to covered segment, so respectively, the operator must follow the ASI B31.8S of Section 6.2, selecting appropriate internal inspection tool for covered segment. A pressure test conducted in accordance with the testing requirements of this part. Operator must use the test pressure specified in Table 3 of Section 5, ASME ASI B31.8S, justify extended reassessment interval in accordance with 255.939. Part, direct assessment of the address of external corrosion, internal corrosion, stress crack, corrosion cracking. Operator must conduct the risk assessment in accordance with requirements of the 255.923 and this part applicable to requirements sections 925, 927, and 929. Other technology operator demonstrate can provide with the equivalent understanding condition of the pipeline. Operator choosing the option must notify the department OPS on 100 days before conducting assessment in accordance with 255.949 of this part. Prior to segments, the operator must prioritize the covered pipeline segment for the baseline assessment in accordance with the risk analysis. Consider the potential threats to covered segment. Risk analysis must comply with the requirements of Section 255.917. Assessment of particular threats shows an assessment method. Baseline assessment each covered part segment. Operator must take an actions requirement to Section 255.917E of this part when address the particular threats is identified. Time period, operator must prioritize the covered segment assessment of the accordance with 255.917C with the part in subdivision B of the section. Operator must assess at least 50% of the covered segments beginning with the high-risk segments by December 17, 2007. An operator must complete the baseline assessment covered in segment of December 17, 2012. Prior assessment, operator must use the prior integrity assessment conducted December 7, 2002. The baseline assessment of the covered segment integrity assessment meets baseline requirements as part of the subsequent remedial action to address the conditions that have below segment section 255.933. Prior been carried out in addition to operator's prior assessment, baseline assessment, operator must reassess the pipe covered segment according to 255, 937, and 939. Newly identified area of the operator identified with the newly high consequence area, and operator must complete with a baseline assessment of the pipe the newly identified high consequence area within 10 years of the day area is identified. Newly installed pipe, operator must complete the baseline assessment of the newly installed segment of the pipe covered by part within 10 years of the day of the pipe is installed, and the operator may conduct the pressure test in accordance with paragraph 8.2 of the section satisfy requirement of the baseline assessment. H. Plastic transmission line threat analysis, section 255.917 D with the part of plastic transmission line to keep the covered segment suspectable failure from the cause of the third-party damage. Operator must conduct a baseline assessment of the segment in accordance with the requirements of the section 255.917 with the part. Operator must justify alternative assessment method addressing and identifying threats of covered segment. And that was 921, conducting a baseline assessment. or a direct assessment. Operator may use the direct assessment, primary assessment, the supplement of the assessment method is allowed under Section 255, 901 through 951 of this part. Operator may use only the direct assessment, primary assessment method to address identified threats, external corrosion, internal corrosion, stress corrosion, cracking. Primary method, operator use the direct assessment, primary assessment method must have to comply with the requirements of AMSI B318S, Section 64, NASCP SP 0502, and Section 255, 925 of the part addressing external corrosion. AMSA, ASME, ASI B318S, Section 64, and Appendix B2 and 255, 927 of this part and addresses internal corrosion. ASME B318S, Appendix A3, Section 929 addresses stress corrosion cracking. Supplemental method, operating use the direct assessment, supplemental assessment of the applicable threat. It must have the following requirements of conformity with the direct assessment, Section 931 of this part. That was direct assessment. External corrosion direct assessment. External corrosion direct assessment, 4 steps combined with a pre-assessment, inter-inspection, direct examination, post-assessment, evaluate threat with external corrosion, integrity of the pipeline. General requirements to operate with the use of the direct assessment. Assess the threat with external corrosion must follow the requirements Section ASI B318S, Section 64, NASC SP 0502. Operator must develop impact of direct assessment of the procedures addressing pre-assessment, indirect inspection, direct examination, post-assessment. The external corrosion direct assessment detects the pipeline coating damage of the operator integrated with the data of the external corrosion direct assessment and their information data integration. Evaluate the covered segment of the threat of third-party damage and address the threat is required in Section 255, 917 of this part. Pre-assessment additional requirements of AMSC, ASI B318S, Section 64, NACP SP 0502, Section 3, Plans, Procedure, Pre-assessment. Provisions applying the more restrictive criteria of the external corrosion direct assessment first time covered segment based on the operator selected the 2 different complementary indirect assessment tools. And to assess the external corrosion direct assessment region, operator utilize the indirect inspection method not discussed in Appendix A and AAC SP 0502. Operator must demonstrate applicable validation basis, equipment use, application procedure, utilization data of this method. Indirect inspection, indirect inspection, additional requirements of ASMA, ASI B318S, Section 64, NASC, CPRP 0502, Section 4 of the plans, procedure, indirect examination, and external corrosion direct assessment regions that include provision applying more restrictive criteria than conducting external corrosion direct assessment first time covered segment. Criteria for identified document, those indicating the must consider excavation direct assessment examination. Minimum identification criteria include no sensor for the assessment tool of the procedure using each tool of the approach, use the decreasing physical spacing of the indirect assessment for tools reading the present defects. Suspected criteria for the defining urgency excavation for the direct examination, each indication identified during the indirect examination. These criteria must specify how the operator will define urgency excavation indication immediately scheduled or monitored. Criteria scheduling excavation indication or urgency level of direct examination. In addition, with the ASMI, ASI B31S, Section 64, ASA SP 0502, Section 5 of the plan procedure, direct examination indication of the direct examination must include provision applying more restrictive criteria for the conducting external corrosion direct assessment for the first time in the covered segment. Criteria for deciding the action should be taken in corrosion defects discovered that exceeding allowable limits or root cause analysis reveals the condition of the external corrosion direct assessment not suitable. Criteria notification for any of the changes external corrosion direct assessment plan indicating including changes that affect severity of classification, the priority of the direct examination time frame, direct examination indications. 4. The criteria describes how the basic operator will reclassify, reprioritize any of the provisions specified in Section 59 ASCP, ANSC, RP 0502. Post-assessment continuing evaluation additional requirements of ASME, ASI B318S, Section 64, NACE, SP 0502, Section 6. Plan procedure post-assessment effective of the external corrosion direct assessment process will include measure evaluating long-term effectiveness of the external corrosion direct assessment addressing external corrosion covered segments. Criteria evaluating whether the conditions directed direct examination indicating external corrosion direct assessment region indicating the need for reassessment. Covered segment intervals less than specified in 255, 939 of the part. See Appendix D and NASCE SP 0502. Alright, internal corrosion direct assessment. Internal corrosion direct assessment properly operated identified along with the pipeline fluid electrolyte introducing during normal operation with the condition of the may reside with the focus of direct examination locations. Covered segments with internal corrosion most likely to exist. The process of identify with the potential internal corrosion caused by microorganisms or fluid, CO, carbon dioxide, oxide, and hydrogen sulfide, other contaminants present in the gas. Operator use the direct assessment method to address the internal corrosion covered pipe segment that must follow the requirements section ASME ASI B318S, section 64 appendix B2. The internal corrosion direct assessment process described in section applies only for a segment of the pipe transmitting normally with a dry gas and natural gas, and not for segment of electrolyte normally present in the gas stream. The operator with the internal corrosion direct assessment as that covered segment operating electrolyte present gas stream. The operator must develop the plan prescribed with the conducting internal corrosion direct assessment and the segment effective address for the internal corrosion, but provide notification according to the section 255, 921, A4, and 937 C4 of this part. Internal corrosion direction assessment plan. Operator must develop the file internal corrosion direct assessment plan. Provides pre-assessment identification, internal corrosion direct assessment regions, excavation location, direct examination, pipe excavation location, post-assessment evaluation, monitoring. Pre-assessment stage. Operator must gather and integrate with the data information needed to evaluate the internal corrosion direct assessment. Covered segment to support with the model identified with the location of the pipe segment electrolyte accumulate with the internal corrosion direct assessment regions, and identify the areas of the covered segment where the liquids may be potentially entrained with the data information can include but not limited to all data listed in appendix A2 of the ASME ASI B318S 8S. Information needed to support the use of the model with the operator must identify the areas along the pipeline internal corrosion most likely to occur. The information includes but not limited to location of the gas input, withdrawals on the line, location of all the low points, covered segment of the sags, drips, inclines, valve, manifold, dead legs, traps, evaluation profile of the pipeline's efficient and detailed angled inclination, calculated with the pipeline segment, the diameter, pipeline range of the expected gas facilities of the pipeline. Operating experience data with including indicating history, upset with the gas conditioning location of the upset with the have occurred with the potential damage of the result of the upset conditions. Information over the covered segment of the cleaning pigs may not have been used where cleaning pigs may be deposit electrolytes. Internal corrosion direction assessment region identification. Operator must identify the internal corrosion direct assessment regions located with the transmission line covered segments with the located internal corrosion direct assessment region. Extends location where liquid may first enter the pipeline encompass for the entire area along with the pipeline. Internal corrosion may occur with a further evaluation. Internal corrosion direct assessment region may encompass more than one more covered segments. Identification process of the operator must use the model GRI 020057 internal corrosion direct assessment gas transmission pipeline methodology described in section 10.3 of the title. Operator may use another model with the operators demonstrated the equivalent of one shown in GR 020057. The model considered chain with the pipe diameter, location, gas on the interlines, potential introduced liquid location downstream ground, draw off where gas velocity is reduced to define critical pipe angle. The inclination above the water film cannot be transported by gas. Identification, location, excavation, direct examination. Operator plan to identify location, internal corrosion most likely each of the internal corrosion direct assessment region. Location identification process. Operator must identify the minimum two locations excavation each internal corrosion direct assessment region covered. Segment must perform direct assessment internal corrosion each location using ultrasound thickness requirements to radiographing and other generally accepted measure technique. Island location must be low point with covered segment nearest to the beginning of the internal corrosion direct assessment region. Second location must be further downstream covered segment near the end of the internal corrosion direct assessment region. If the corrosion exists, if either location others, operator must 1. Evaluate severity of the defect of the remaining strength of the remediate the defect with accordance with section 255 933 as part of the operator's current integrity assessment. Perform an additional excavation each covered segment of the internal corrosion direct assessment region using an alternative assessment method allowing section 255 901 to 951 to assess line pipe with each covered segment with the internal corrosion direct assessment region internal corrosion. 3. Evaluate potential internal corrosion pipeline segment with both covered and non-covered operator pipeline system similar with the characteristic incorrect direct assessment region containing covered segment with the corrosion was found. Operated remedial conditions. Operated finds accordance with section 255 933. Post-assessment evaluation monitoring and map plan. Operator's plan must provide evaluating effect of the internal corrosion direct assessment process considering and continue monitoring covered segments with the internal corrosion. Identified evaluating monitoring process includes evaluating effectiveness, internal corrosion direct assessment method, internal corrosion of the corrosion, determining whether the covered segment should be Reassess more frequent intervals specified in 255-939 of this part. Operator must carry out the evaluation within a year conducting internal corrosion direct assessment. Continually monitoring each covered segment of an internal corrosion identified with techniques such as coupons, UT sensors, electronic probes, periodic draw-off liquids and low points, chemically analyzing liquids for presence corrosion product. The operator must baseline frequency of the mining liquid analysis result of integrity assessment have been conducted in accordance with the requirements of Section 255-901 through 951. The risk factors specified by the covered segment. If the operator finds with evidence corrosion products in the covered segment, the operator must take the prompt action in accordance with one of the following required actions to remediate the conditions. Operator finds in accordance with Section 255-933 of this part. Conduct the excavation segment and covered segment location downstream where the electrolyte may have entered in the pipe. Assess covered segment using integrity assessment method allowed in Section 255-901 through 951. Other requirements internal corrosion direct assessment plan must include a criteria operator will apply to make key decisions in implementing each state of internal corrosion direct assessment process. Versus applying more restrictive criteria than conducting internal corrosion direct assessment for the first time covered segment that blasts and becomes less stringent as the operator gains experience. Provision of the analysis carried out with the entire pipeline when the covered segment is present, except for the application of remedial criteria, Section 255-933 of the part limited covered segments. And that was internal corrosion direct assessment 927. Alright, direct assessment, stress corrosion tracking. Stress corrosion cracking direct assessment process acts as covered pipe with the presence of the stress corrosion cracking, primarily systematically gathering, analyzing, excavating data of the pipe similar operating characteristics, residual similar physical environment. General requirements operating you the direct assessment integrity assessment method to drift the stress corrosion covered pipeline segment. It must have the plan that provides a minimum data gathering integration of the operator's plan must provide a systematic process to calculate and evaluate the data all covered segment, identify the conditions, stress, corrosion, cracking present with the priorities covered segment assessment. Process must include gathering, evaluating data of the stress, corrosion, cracking at all sites. Operators excavate during the conduct of the pipeline operating criteria ASMI, ASI B31A. Appendix A3 indicating the potential stress corrosion cracking data includes a minimum of data specified ASMI ASI B318X. Appendix A assessment method plan provide with the conditions stress corrosion cracking identified covered segment. Operator must assess covered segment using integrity assessment method ASMI ASI B318X. Appendix A3 and remediate threat in accordance with the ASMI ASI B318S. Appendix A3 section A34. Then conformity direct assessment operating with the conformity with the direct assessment method. Section 255-937 of this part must plainly the requirements of the Section 255-925 of the external corrosion direct assessment and the 255-927 internal corrosion direct assessment. Operator either the CD conformity direct assessment covered segment identified with the damage result of external corrosion or internal corrosion. External corrosion operating the conformity direct assessment plan identifying the correct external corrosion must comply with the 255-925 of this part following exemption procedures. An indirect examination must also use only one direct examination tool suitable for the application. Procedure for the direct examination remediation must provide with the immediate action indicated with the excavated with the external corrosion direct assessment region. At least one high-risk indication of needs for the criteria scheduled action must be excavated in an external corrosion direction access region. Internal corrosion plan. The conformity direct assessment plan identified with the internal corrosion must comply with Section 255-927 of the part except for the plan proceed with identification and location of the excavation may occur over the excavation only one high risk of the internal corrosion direct assessment region. Direct requiring near-term remediation assessment carry over under subdivision B and C of the section reveals defects requiring remediation prior to the new scheduled assessment. The operator must schedule the new assessment in accordance with the NACPE SP 0502 section 62 and 63. The defects require immediate remediation. The operator must reduce the pressure consistent with the section 255-933 of the operator completely reassessment using only one of the assessment techniques of 255-937 of this part. Alright, Alright, addressing integrity issues. General requirements must take prompt action in anomalous condition of the operator to discover the integrity assessment and addresses all condition of the operator must survive with anomalous condition, remediate. They can reduce pipeline integrity. The operator must be able to demonstrate the remediation condition and ensure the condition and unlikely to threat with the integrity pipeline the next assessment covered segment of the operator even able to respond with a time limit certain conditions specified with the section. Operator must temporarily reduce the operating pressure of the pipeline, take other action, ensure the safety of the covered segment. The pressure reduced, the operator must determine the temporary reduction and if the operating pressure of the ASI B31G of the Pipeline Research Council of the International PR 3805 R string as described in section 10.3 of the title of the reduce the operating pressure for the level not exceeding 80% of the level at the time of the condition. Discover the reduction operating pressure cannot exceed 365 days when operating provided with a technical justification. Continuing pressure restriction will not be jeopardize integrity of the pipeline. Discovery of the condition curve of the operator, adequate information condition to determine the condition present with the potential threat with integrity of the pipeline condition. The potential threat includes but not limited to the condition requiring remedial monitoring listed under the paragraphs A1 through D3 of this section. Operator must properly with no more than later than 180 days after conducting integrity assessment. Operator sufficient information condition to make the determination of the operator to demonstrate the 180 period of impracticability. C. Schedule evaluation remediation. Operator must complete with the remediation of the condition according to the schedule prior type of the condition, evaluating remediation and limit the special requirement of the remediation. Certain conditions apply. Provided subdivision C D of this section. Operator must file with the schedule ASMI B31D S 8S described in 10.3 of section 7 of figure 4 that the operator cannot meet with the schedule of the condition. The operator must justify the reason why it cannot meet the schedule of the exchange schedule of the that will not jeopardize public safety. The operator must notify the Department of OPS according to section 255 949 of this part. The schedule cannot provide safety with a temporary production, operating pressure, or other action. These special requirements for the special and remediation, media repair conditions, operator evaluation, remediation schedule must follow the ASI B318S 7 section 7 providing intermediate repair conditions to maintain safety. Operator must temporarily reduce the operating pressure according to the subdivision A of the section shut down on the pipeline with the operator complete with the repair of these conditions. Operator must treat with the condition and immediate repair condition. Calculation remaining strength of the pipe of the predicted failure pressure less than equal to 1.1 times the maximal allowable operating pressure location anomaly suitable remaining strength. Calculation method ASI B31G PRC PR 30805 R string and any alternative equivalent method of remaining in the strength calculation. These documents include which reference available in addressing list in section 10.3 of this title. In the indication metal loss, cracking, and stress rise with an indication of abnormal judgment pressures designated with the operator to evaluate assessment result that requires immediate action. 1 year condition. Except for the condition listed in paragraph 1 and 3 of the subdivision, operator must remediate the following 1 year to discover the condition. Smooth debt located between 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock position of the depth greater than 6% of the pipeline diameter and depth of the pipeline diameter less than nominal pipe size. Depth greater than 2% over the pipeline diameter and depth over the pipeline diameter of less than NPS 12. The effective pipe curvature, girth weld, longitudinal seam weld. 3. Monitor condition. Operator does not have scheduled following condition. Remediation must record monitoring current conditions during subsequent risk assessment, integrity assessment for any of the changes that may require remediation. 10. With the depth of the groove at 6% of the pipeline diameter and the depth of the pipeline diameter with less than NPS located in 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock position, 8 o'clock position, bottom half over the bottom third of the pipe. Depth located at 8 o'clock, 4 o'clock position, upper 2/3 of the pipe. The depth greater than 6% of the pipeline diameter greater than half an inch. Depth of the pipeline diameter is less than nominal pipe size 12. The engineering analysis of the demonstrated the critical strain level is not exceeded. With a depth greater than 2% of the pipeline diameter or quarter an inch. Depth of the pipeline diameter less than NPS 12. The affects my pipe curvature, girth weld, longitudinal seam, and engineering analysis of the depth and girth and seam weld demonstrate a critical strain level is not exceeded. The analyzer must consider weld properties. That was 933, addressing integrity issues. Alright, preventive mitigative measures to protect high consequence area. General requirements. Operator must take additional measures beyond those required by the part to prevent pipeline failure, to mitigate consequent pipeline failure for the high consequent area. The operator must pay the additional measure for the threats to the operator to identify with each pipeline segment. As an operator may conduct with accordance with the risk assessment ASI B318S of Section 5 of the risk analysis of the pipeline identified with additional measures to protect the high consequent area of the enhanced public safety. See additional measures that include, but not limited to, installing automatic shut valves, remote control valves, installing computerized monitoring, leaking detection system, replacing pipeline segment of the pipe, heavier wall thickness, providing additional training with the personnel responsible to proceed with the conducting drill of local emergency responders, and indicating additional inspection maintenance program. Third-party damage and outside force damage. Third-party damage operator must enhance the damage prevention program required in Section 255-614 with respect to the covered segment with a minimum of the consequence of the release due to the third-party damage and enhanced measure of the existing damage prevention program include, but not limited to, use qualified person to work the operator with the duct and can adversely affect the integrity of the covered segment, marking location and direct supervision known as excavation work. 2. Collecting essential database information locations, specifically the excavation data with the curve of the covered and uncovered segment of the transmission line, root cause analysis, support identification, targeted additional preventive and mitigated measure within high consequent area. Information must include recognizing the damage if not required report, but it include with the section 255, 801A, and 831 of this part. Participating one call system location covered segments are present, monitoring excavation conducted, uncovered pipeline segment of the pipeline personnel. If the operator find with the physical evidence encroachment involved with the excavation of the operator, but did not mind with the covered segment, the operator must either excavate the area either the encroachment or conduct an above ground survey using the method NACE RP0502. The operator must excavate the remedial with according with the ANSI ASMI B318S section 255-933, the part indicating the coding holidays discontinuing warning direct examination. Outside force damage. Operator determine the outside force damage is a threat integrity with the covered segment, where the operator must take the measure of the minimum of the consequence of the covered segment from outside force damage. This measure include, but not limited to, decreasing frequency aerial foot over the methods patrol with additional external protection, reducing external stress, and relocating the line. C. Automatic shut-off valve, the remote control valve. The operator determine the risk and the automatic shut-off of the remote control valves would be efficient means of adding protection high consequent area with the event of the gas release operator with the automatic shut-off and remote control valves, making the determination operator must lease. Consider the following factors: swiftness of the leak detection, pipe shutdown capability, type of the gas being transported, operator pressure for the rate with the potential release, line profile of the potential of the ignition location, nearest response personnel, pipelines operating below 30% of the system yield measured strength, operated with a transmission line between open 30% of the system yield strength located high consequent area must follow the requirements of paragraph 1 and 2. Subdivision operated with transmission on the pipeline operating below 30% of the system yield strength located in class 3 or 4 local areas but not in the high consequence areas must follow the requirements of paragraphs 1, 2, and 3 of the subdivision. Apply requirements subparagraph B1, 1, and 2 of the section of the pipeline. Each monitoring excavation near the pipeline control controls as required in 255-705 of the pipeline by monthly intervals. If any of the operator indication of the unreported constructive activity, operator must conduct a follow-up investigation, determine the mechanical damage has been occurred, perform a semi-annual leak survey, quarterly unprotected pipelines, cathodically protected pipe, where electrical surveys are impractical, plastic transmission pipeline operator, plastic transmission must apply requirements subparagraph B1, 1, 3, and 4 of the section covered segments of the pipeline. There's 935, preventive mitigative measures to protect high consequence areas. Our continual process of evaluation and assessment. After completion of the base integrity assessment of the covered segment, the operator must continue the assessment of the pipeline segment with the interval specified in section 255-939. Periodically evaluate the integrity of each of the covered pipeline segment of the subdivision B with the section operator must be reassessed with the covered segment of the prior assessment credited as a baseline or section 255-921 part no later than December 7th, 2009. Operator must assess the covered segment of the baseline assessment conducted during the baseline specified in 255-921 of this part, but no later than 7 years after the base assessment covered segment unless the evaluation of the subdivision B would indicate the earlier reassessment. Evaluation operator must conduct the periodic evaluation frequency needed to ensure the integrity of the covered segment of the periodic evaluation based on the data integration reassessment of the entire pipeline is specified in 255-917, plastic transmission pipeline periodic evaluation based on the threat analysis section 255-917D of this part. For all other transmission line evaluation must consider the past and present integrity assessment, resolve the data integration risk assessment information, the decision about remediation, and additional preventive mitigative risk actions. The operator must use the result of the evaluate and identify the threats, specify the covered segment of the risk presented with the threats. See assessment method. In conducting integrity as the reassessment, operator must assess the integrity of the line pipe covered segment. Any of the following methods appropriate for the threads covered in the segment is suspectable: internal inspection of the tools or tools capable of detecting corrosion. Any other threads for the covered segment is select suspectable. Operator must follow ANSI B318S Section 60, selecting appropriate internal inspection tool covered segment. Pressure test conducted in accordance with the testing requirements of part. Operator must view the test pressure specified in Table 3, Section 5, ASME, ANSI B318S, justify the extending reassessment interval in accordance with 255-939 of this part. Direct assessment, direct threat, external corrosion, internal corrosion, stress, corrosion, cracking. Operator must conduct with a direct assessment in accordance with the requirements of 255-933 of this part applicable, or specified in 925, 927, and 929 of this part. Or the technology operator demonstrator that can provide equivalent understanding of the condition of the line pipe. Operator choosing the option must notify the department OPS 180 days before conducting a reassessment. According to Section 255-949 of this part, conformity direct assessment, either the covered segment is scheduled for the reassessment over the period longer than 70 years operating. Either the reassessment method must comply with 255-931 of this part, and that was 937, the continual process, evaluation, and assessment. Reassessment intervals. Operator must comply with the following requirements: establishing reassessment interval of the operator covered pipeline. Operator must establish with the reassessment interval that each covered segment of the operating with above 30% of the system yield the training in accordance with requirement with the selection of the maximum reassessment interval will allow the reassessment method of 70 years. Operator reestablish reassessment interval that is greater than 70 years. The operator must submit the end 70-year period to conduct with the conformity direct assessment. Covered segment to conduct with the following reassessment interval of the operator established reassessment carried out with the conformity with the direct assessment done in accordance with Section 255-931. This is part of the table file of the section of the maximum law reassessment intervals. Pressure test, internal inspection, other equivalent technology. Operator either the pressure testing, internal inspection assessment method must establish reassessment interval of the covered pipeline segment, basing interval with identified threats for the covered segment, and of the analysis result of the last integrity assessment of the data integration risk assessment required in Section 255-917 of this part, using intervals specified on the different stress levels of the pipeline. Listed in ANSI B318S Section 5, Table 3. External corrosion direct assessment. External corrosion direct assessment meets the requirements of Section 901 through 951 of the part. Confirming the reassessment interval in accordance with requirements for 62 and 63 at NAACE RP 0502. Internal corrosion, stress corrosion, cracking direct assessment. Operating an internal corrosion direct assessment or stress corrosion direct assessment is in accordance with requirements Section 255-901 through 951 of the part. Determine the reassessment interval in according with the following method. However, the reassessment interval cannot exceed those specified by the direct assessment ASME ANSI B3187 Section 5 Table 3. Determine the largest defect most likely to remain in covered segment with the corrosion rate appropriate to the pipe and soil protection conditions. Using the largest remaining defects decide with the largest defect discovered. Stress corrosion, cracking, internal corrosion direct assessment segment. Estimate reassessment interval time required. Largest defect of the grow and critical size. Pipelines operating below 30% system yielded strength. The operator must establish reassessment for the interval with the covered segment operating below 30% of the system yielded strength in accordance with the requirements of the section. Maximum reassessment and allowable reassessment method in 70 years. Operator must establish reassessment by at least one of the following. Reassessment of the pressure test, internal inspection, equivalent technology found in the requirements of paragraph A1 of the section, step at the stress level of reference, and subparagraph A1-2 of the section, adjust the reflect the lower operating stress level of the established interval more than 70 years of the operator must conduct with a 70 year of the interval conform to the direct assessment in accordance with section 931 of this part, low stress resistant. Assessment in accordance with 255-941 of the part. Reassessment external corrosion direct assessment filed with the requirements of paragraph A2 of the section. Reassessment internal corrosion stress corrosion control direct assessment filing requirements of paragraph A3 of the section. Reassessment conformity direct assessment 7-year interval in accordance with the section 931 of the reassessment by one of the methods listed in paragraph 1.3 of the subdivision year by the 20th year 20 of the interval. Reassessment low stress assessment method 7 years in accordance with section 255-941 of this part. Reassessment one of the methods in paragraphs 1-3 of the subdivision year 20 interval. Following table sets the maximum allowable reassessment interval as appendix E2 14E2 guidance assessment method reassessment schedule transmission pipeline operating 30% yielded system yielded strength case of conflicting the rule guidance appendix and requirements of rule control. Operator must comply with the following requirements establishing the reassessment interval covered segment. Assessment tool pipeline operating 50% above 50 up to 50% below 30%. Preliminary direct assessment is 255, 931 must conduct in 7 to 10 year interval, 7 to 14, 15 year interval. Low stress reassessment, conformity direct assessment must be conducted by year 7 and 14 year interval. That was reassessment intervals, 939. Low stress assessment. Operated with the transmission operating 30% system yielded strength with the following method of the reassessment of the covered segment in accordance with the section 255 939 method of reassessment of the drift external and internal corrosion. Operator must have the baseline assessment covered segment in accordance with requirements 255 919 921. External corrosion may often take the following action. Added external corrosion with a low stress covered segment. The cathodically protected pipe with the thread with an external corrosion cathodic protected pipe with the covered segment. The operator must perform an electrical survey at least once every 7 years with the covered segment. The operator may use result of each survey as a part of the overall evaluation. Cathodic protection corrosion thread with the covered segment of the evaluation must consider the minimum leak repair, inspection records, corrosion maintaining record, monitoring records, exposed pipe inspection record of the pipe environment, protected pipe, cathodically protected pipe with electrical surveys, impractical electrical survey, impractical covered segment, the conduct of leakage survey. They require them 255 706 4-month interval each 18 months. Every 18 months, identify remediate active corrosion, evaluate leak repair, inspection records, corrosion monitoring reports, expect pipe inspection records, pipeline environment. C. Internal corrosion to address the threat of an internal corrosion covered segment. The operator must 1. Conduct gas and else corrosive agents at least once each calendar year. Conduct periodic testing fluids for remove the segment at least once each calendar year. The test fluids removed from the storage field that may affect the covered segment at least once every 7 years. Integrate data with the analysis test required in paragraph 1 and 2 with the subdivision applicable to internal corrosion, leak records, incidental report, safety related condition report, repair records, patrol records, exposed pipe reports, test records, define, implement appropriate remedial actions. 941 low stress reassessment. Alright, deviation for reassessment intervals. Waiver of the reassessment interval limited situation. Following limited situation of the Department OPS will allow the waiver of the reassessment interval required in section 255 939 of the Department OPS with the lines of waiver that not inconsistent with the pipeline safety lack internal inspection tool of the operator with internal inspection reassessment. Assessment method to be justified with a longer reassessment period for the covered segment with the internal inspection tool is not available to assess the pipeline pipe. This justified the operator must made a demonstration that could not obtain with an internal inspection tool for the required reassessment period to define the actual operation take with the interim and ensure the integrity of the covered segment. Maintain product supply. Operator must be able to justify the longer reassessment period with the covered segment. The operator demonstrated that it cannot be maintained local product supply with exact reassessment recorded interval. How to apply in order one condition that's specified in paragraph A1 and 2 of the sections. The operator may seek waiver of the required assessment interval. The operator must apply with a waiver condition Title 49 U.S. Standard Code 60118C at least 180 days before the end of the required reassessment interval unless local product supply issue make periodic impractical. Local product supply issues may periodic impractical. The operator must apply with a waiver as soon as needed for the waiver becomes known. 943 deviation reassessment intervals. Alright, measuring program effectiveness. General, the must include the integrity management program, method to measure the program effectiveness, assessing, evaluating integrity each for the covered pipelines for the protecting high consequence of their measure include the 4 overall performance measures specified in ASME ASI B318S, Section 94 specific measure identified with the threat ASME ASI B318S. Appendix A, operator must submit the 4 overall measures. Performance measures part of the annual report on Title 49 CFR 19-191-17. External corrosion direct assessment. In addition to the general requirement performance measures, subdivision A of the operator of the direct assessment staff with external corrosion. Threat method defined the minor measure to determine the effectiveness of external corrosion direct assessment process. The measures must meet the requirements of Section 255 929 of this part. Alright, records. Operator must maintain the use of the life of the pipeline record that demonstrate the plan with the requirement of 255, 901 through 951. Part of the minimum operator maintaining the following record during the inspection. Written integrity management plan in accordance with the 902, 255, and 907. Document supporting threat identification and the risk assessment in accordance with the 255, 917. For this part, written based on assessment plan in accordance with the 255, 919. Of this part, documents to support any decision analysis process, develop and implement, evaluate each element of baseline assessment of the integrity management program. Documents include those developed to give the support, identification, calculation, amendment, the modification, justification, deviation, termination made, any action taken to implement and evaluate the program. Element of documents demonstrate the personnel required for the training include the description of the training program in accordance with section 255, 915 part. Schedule requirement 255, 933 of this part provides over the condition of during the assessment, evaluation, remediation, including the technical justification schedule. Chief of the documents carry out the requirement of 255, 923, and 929 of the document direct assessment. Document carry out the requirement of 255, 931 of the part conforming to direct assessment. Verification operator provide with the documentation notification required in section 255, 901 through 951 of this part provide with the department OPS. That was records. Notification requirements. Operator must submit the notification requirement of 255, 901 through 951. Such notification must be submitted to the U.S. Department of Transportation according to Title 49 CFR and 192, 949. Reporting requirements. As operator must submit the report required in section 255, 901 through 951. As part of such reports must also submit the U.S. Department of Transportation according to Title 49 CFR 192, 951. And that completes the 901 to 951 transmission pipeline integrity. We'll cut the tape and we'll come back for the 1000s.